Greetings, everybody, and welcome back to the Talking Philly Sports with Matty B program here on the Edge of Philly Sports with your boy, Matty B. It is Monday, November the 13th, 2023, and it's great pleasure to be back with you yet again for another week of Philadelphia sports here on the network and here for you, and I hope this night finds you well. A bunch of stuff to get into. It's the bye week. The bye week is over finally. God, I hate the bye weeks. For those of you out there who don't remember this, there was a time in the NFL where there was 2 bye weeks this season, and that was really bad. That was very, you think one is bad. Yeah, man, I cannot. It was horrible to live through 2 of them, but we are through the bye week. The Kansas City Chiefs are on the horizon, the 8-1 Philadelphia Eagles. We're going to get into some of that. We're also going to talk some baseball tonight. The Phillies in the news. Aaron Nola tendered an offer, but apparently it's about $100 million off of what he's looking for, both in time or both in money, and I think he's looking for like a 7-year deal. So we'll get into some hot stove stuff, and then of course the main topic of the night, why I brought you all here in the first place. My man Bill Matz is coming back on the program, and he is going to jump into some Flyers. We spoke with Bill right after the NHL draft, kind of whet your appetite. We are 15 games in now. We're going to get a kind of a checkpoint here with the Flyers and Bill, as he'll be joining me here in about 2 minutes as we'll talk some Flyers. But before we do, let's get into our first segment on the show every week, and that, of course, is your day in Philadelphia sports history. And this week it is brought to you by the good folks over at Philly Sports Trips and phillysportstrips.com. If you want to travel like the pros, look no further than Philly Sports Trips, as they have you covered for the Eagles, Flyers, Sixers, Phillies, and the Union. That's right. You're going to go travel with the Union too. So head over to Philly Sports Trips for everything they have to offer. Tell them the folks here on Edge of Philly Sports sent you. This day in Philadelphia sports history is football, related. I don't know if you guys remember this, but I certainly do. On this day back in 1994, now for those of you who were Eagle fans back in 94, you remember it was a great season. The first half was 7-2 were your Philadelphia Eagles heading into the second half. And that second half began on this day back in 94. It was Jeff Lurie's first year as the owner. Everything could not have been looking better for this organization. But today they lost 27-6 to the Cleveland Browns, the first of a 7-game losing streak in order to wrap up the 94 season. It ultimately, thankfully, mercifully cost Rich Kotite his job. And the rest is history, of course. Ray Rhodes would come on in 95, and then Randy Reed would show up 4 years later. And then here we are today. But the reason why I bring it up is that there's a lot of confidence about this football team, but there's a lot of flaws about this football team. And at 8-1, I don't know what that trophy looks like. What does the 8-1 trophy look like? I'm not interested in it if there is such a thing. I'm interested in the one you get at the end of the season when you're the last team standing. I am certainly excited about the 8-1 start, but I lived through 94. I remember the 7-2 start. It can turn. So as much confidence as we have, rightfully so, in this team, they are in the midst or in the beginning stages of a gauntlet of the schedule that everybody kind of saw back in May. It's going to take them through some really interesting games, starting 2 weeks ago against Dallas, and then Monday night against Kansas City, and then on through Buffalo, San Francisco, Seattle, Dallas again. So things looking good now, but let's pump the brakes and let's enjoy it while we get it, but let's take this thing one game at a time because we haven't won anything yet. So that is your date in Philadelphia sports history. The beginning of the end of the 94 Eagles occurred on this date back in 94. So I hope you enjoyed that motivational nugget to get you going here for the week. Let's transition now to hockey and my main man who's waiting here, Bill. Bill Matz is back with me. Bill, welcome back to the program. How you been? So, hey, Bill, I think you're muted. We can't hear you.
Yeah, that's on me. Radio professional over here. Anyway, let's pretend what I just said was profound and genius.
Okay.
So, Matt, just listening to how you started. So you weren't fooled by the 3-1 Flyers start? That one, it didn't quite get you?
No, I've been taken to the woodshed once too often, Bill, by that. So I'm a big let's wait till it all kind of works out kind of guy these days.
It's the smart way to be. You know, I started talking, hey, what if this is a playoff team? And then it was, oh, well, maybe not. But hey, as we sit right now, they're like 1 point out. So who the hell knows with these Flyers?
Yeah, no, Bill, and we're going to hopefully know a little bit more after our little time together tonight. But before we jump into it, Bill, I want to congratulate you on your little gig there over at PHLY, I believe it's called. You host the daily, well, just about the Daily Flyers show over there with Charlie O'Connor and the rest of the gang. How has that been? First and foremost, how is it to come up with something to talk about on a quite regular basis about this hockey team, almost daily? Is it hard for you to do that?
You know, there's a lot of days I wake up and go, what the hell is today's show going to be about? But luckily, the Flyers play along. They're very good at giving us, even Charlie and I joke about this all the time. Like, what's the biggest move the Flyers have made in the last 6-7 years? Like, what's their biggest win? Like, they don't do anything that's like top of the headline stuff you absolutely have to talk about. But for like a B and C headline, absolutely. They're constantly, whether it's, oh yeah, Morgan Frost, he's playing tonight. He's scratched tonight. Oh, Carter Hart, yeah, he's sick, even though we told you he's going to play. There's always something. So it is like, this is the most fun I've ever had, quote unquote, working. I won't say it's like actual work, because I know people who actually work, and talking hockey ain't really a job, but they pay me enough to say I guess it is. But it's been absolutely tremendous. PHLY, best experience I've had in this business, getting to do it every single day, getting to really build this community, getting to see what Charlie does on a day-to-day. Honestly, that dude puts me to shame, the amount of hours he puts in, the amount of time. You know, there was an off day a couple of like maybe a week ago, and I spent the off day. I was like, oh, dude, I'm watching wrestling. I'm hanging out with my wife. I'm doing all this other stuff, going out to lunch. He's like, oh yeah, I tracked like 5 games manually, like did some stats. Like, oh, well, that's a choice, I guess. But no, it's been absolutely great. And at least the Flyers are, although maybe not, you know, they're not Edmonton where it's a tire fire. And they're not Vegas where it's, yeah, we're popping champagne bottles every single day waiting for the playoffs. They do give us enough that it's not all that hard to come up with things to talk about.
No, Bill, and you're right. They do seem to kind of drag you down and lift you all back up at the same time. And again, last time we spoke was right after the draft, and of course, season began. We're now 15 games in, 7-1. I mean, I guess it could be better, and I also believe it could be worse. Let's kind of key in on a couple things, though, right off the bat. Coming out of camp, it's a John Tortorella thing that his teams are pretty much more conditioned than their opponents, or probably for the first 3 weeks of the season, because of the type of training camp that Tortorella puts them through. And the Flyers they followed suit this year with another somewhat strong October. Is there truth to that, Bill? What do you think about that? Is it a matter of the Flyers were just a little bit more conditioned than these other teams are coming out the gate? There were some decent games played in October, but as the month kind of wore on and some of these teams began to kind of catch up, so did the Flyers began to lose them more. So what do you is there anything to that, you think?
There's definitely something to the John Tortorella factor, Matt. Like, it can't be understated that guys have to stay in shape all summer just to survive the John Tortorella camp. It's, oh, Travis Sanheim put on this weight, got bigger and stronger, and Joel Farabee, all of a sudden he's looking like a lot more like the player we expected him to be. He did so much work this summer. You definitely see it early on, and I think that combined with the NHL regular season is, I mean, I won't say it's like football where they play 17 games. They're going to play 82. But we're seeing so much of dudes just don't play in the NFL preseason. And then that those first 3-4 games, September, it's kind of an extension of the preseason. I don't know if hockey is to that extent, but guys, for the most part, teams are not ready to go right away. And the Flyers have been. That's why they started out so well in terms of wins and losses. And even as the month went on and they started to lose some games, I don't know, you can say 2-3 clunkers in there, like where they just got flat out outplayed. For the most part, the Flyers have played pretty well, even with some really good teams. And then, yeah, is Vegas going to win it in the last 30 seconds because they're so much better? Absolutely. You see those games in Dallas, they played well against Dallas, but at the end of the day, you see what's going to happen. I think there's a lot of things that go into it, but the Tortorella factor can't be denied. And I think it's something that's going to be an issue all season when the Flyers play their absolute, the John Tortorella dream game where they just work their asses off and outwork their opponent. They're going to have a chance. Now, when they bring their B game, yeah, chances are they're going to lose. But they definitely, just because of who their coach is and kind of what he demands, they're going to have a chance a lot of nights.
So let's talk a little bit about who his coach is. Actually, I got a couple comments I want you to see, Bill. Edge of Philly Sports wants to know, what's up, Bill? You really liked your serious promo pick. I saw that little comment you made on Twitter there about that.
It's just funny that like my default faces and all of my promo materials making a funny face, and somehow we found somewhere along the way me making a serious face. I was probably like reading a comment in a post game or something. I found it comical. It was a great picture.
I thought it was professional. I thought it looked very stoic, Bill. I'm going to give you that. It looked like it gave you some cred, man. Like it was. I know what I'm talking about. I like that. I like to kind of do. I need to get pictures like that. But
the last thing I want is anyone thinking I know what I'm talking about, Matty.
So you mentioned a couple of the clunkers coming out. I was actually honored by the Flyers on October 28th. I was the hometown hero that day, and I showed up for the 7-4 game against Anaheim. So that was it was kind of a clunker and a downer, but
that's the worst part. Like they've only played a couple of bad games, and they seem to be doing it at home a lot. So if you're just like you go to the games, you probably have the impression they're doing a lot worse than they actually are. Like for some reason, they've thrown in like 2 of their 3 worst games at home.
Yeah, that was a bad one, that Anaheim game. But let's kind of center this a little bit on some aspects of the Flyers game. Let's talk about the injured reserve situation right now. And again, there's no surprises here, except maybe for one. We got, Ryan Ellis. What a shot. Ryan Ellis is on injured reserve. Never going to play again. Ryan Ellis. I don't know if you remember. He was a AHL guy they brought up. Didn't work out. Yeah. Anyway, but he's on injured reserve. Mark Stahl played a few games. He's ended up on injured reserve. And, of course, Ristolainen, who has not played at all this season, is on injured reserve. And it's conjuring up a little bit of Ryan Ellis feelings for me. Can you break some news to me, Bill? Do you know what's wrong with Ristolainen and when's he coming back?
This is something I keep asking Charlie about. Like you mentioned the Mark Stahl thing, and we know what that is. He's an older player. We kind of got told he wasn't going to play every game this year, and whether that's scratchings for young guys or, hey, he just needs some time off. Now he's actually out with an injury, and it kind of worked out for the Flyers because there isn't some log jam with the left-handed defenseman. Igor Zamula has played basically every game since Stahl went out, and we'll see what happens when he gets back because it's getting around the time we might start see him skating. We were told maybe a December return for him, so we will see how that plays out. But nobody knows what's going on with Rasmus Ristolainen to this point, and it's kind of I've asked Charlie, is this a real test? For the, we're going to be more transparent. We're going to let the fans in. It's going to be a collaborative effort with the fans and everyone. We're going to let them in. Maybe they just don't know. Maybe this is just a thing where they expected him back and he had a setback and they're just kind of waiting to see how it all plays out. But it's a real test for the, transparency. That's what we're going to be in this new era of Orange. So I'm waiting to hear like everyone else because this has gone on much, much longer than anyone expected. Last year, Ristolainen kind of had something similar. He's not ready to go opening night. And a couple games in, we see him back. No harm, no foul. But listen, even if you're not a Rasmus Ristolainen fan, and I like getting to see some other guys play, where the hell is this dude? How come we haven't seen Rasmus Ristolainen? Yeah. We haven't really had an update about him. It's getting into the, so this is going to be the same kind of thing. But there's always the possibility that they just don't know. We're conditioned because of the way we were treated as fans previously to be like, oh yeah, same old Flyers. They're just hiding some guy who's never going to play again. And that could very well end up happening. But right now, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt and just it's an injury that they can't quite get their hands around right yet.
Bill, it's $5 million more of the salary cap sitting on IR, and then you couple that with Ryan Ellis. I believe he's getting somewhere around $6 million a year. Let me look at it right here. Yeah, $6.25 million for Ellis, $5 million now for Risto, $1 million on Stahl. On average, we got about $12.35 million of contracts sitting on the injured reserve. It frustrates me, Bill, as a Flyers fan, that it's that. I get it, and injuries happen in the sport of hockey, in all sports, but how do you assuage my feelings of $12.35 million of salary sitting on IR?
That's right now. It's just kind of something you have to deal with. Getting towards the trade deadline, and that's months and months away, when they're going to have to maybe retain some salary, take some bad contracts back to get the best possible return for guys like Cam Atkinson, maybe Mark Stahl when he returns. It could get a little more complicated, but right now the Flyers are not in a position where they're looking to add anything. So the cap, the misused or poorly allocated, however you want to categorize it, the cap space doesn't mean anything at this moment. I assume Mark Stahl, Rasmus Ristolainen, these guys are going to be back in 2024, in February, March, when they're actually looking to make some substantial moves around the trade deadline. And that's when you can run into some issues. But as of right now, it's just kind of one of those frustrating things. And I guess at least it's not Sean Couturier. Like, at least it's not players of great consequence. Like, Mark Stahl is a guy who was brought in case they didn't have anyone else. They didn't want to get caught without a bunch of players. Rasmus, it stinks, but we assume he's going to be back at some point. Ryan Ellis, if they ever actually need that cap space, it can be long-term injured reserve and it's not hurting you. Yeah. But right now, you just don't look at cap friendly. That's what I always tell everyone. That's what Charlie honestly tells me, because I get annoyed. I'm like, can't they just figure something out with Ristolainen or with Ryan Ellis? Because I'm tired of looking at his name. And he says, just don't look at cap friendly. Like, if it's going to frustrate you, don't.
Because he's not going to retire. Why? He doesn't have to retire.
I mean, he wants to get paid.
Yeah, and that's the CBA. That's what they got. So, I mean, you can't blame the player there. But when and obviously, and it's not Keith Jones or Daniel Briere either. This is all Chuck Fletcher's mess here that we're talking about. Well, two of the three. But when I see it, I just can't help but wonder. It's $12.35 million that I could have given to Johnny Hockey or somebody like that to come in here and to maybe put some butts in the seats and some pucks in the net. So that's what it kind of frustrates me, Bill. That's all.
And we're gonna be relitigating the Johnny Gaudreau offseason up until this team is good again, because that's what we do, right? The one thing I'll say is it might be the one smart move they made that offseason. Like, with him, they actually recognized the timeline. Oh, he doesn't fit. Why would we do that? And that's not why they didn't do it. They didn't do it because Chuck Fletcher wasn't creative enough to move JVR. Like, they would have done it. You telling me Comcast didn't want to bring in Johnny Gaudreau, sell a bunch of jerseys, sell a couple extra tickets?
Hometown kid and all that.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. Yeah.
Exactly. But if they recognize he doesn't fit the timeline, it's like, well, but you re-signed Ristolainen, a mediocre player? Why does he fit the timeline? And listen, Travis Sanheim's been great, and it seems like it's working out this year, but to sign him a year ahead of time, on the eve of the season to an 8-year deal, it's like, well, how does Travis Sanheim fit the timeline if Johnny does? They're the same age. I am as baffled by most of the things that Chuck Fletcher did as anybody. You can't get a defense of Chuck out of me.
No, and I wouldn't expect one. Actually, I would actually, I have respect for you, Bill.
No, I have to maintain some of that street cred. Even things I think he did well, I have to kind of bury deep down. Like, oh,
So
the
you
Drew
mentioned,
trade, he did a good job.
yeah.
Lower the volume.
Oh, was it too loud for you there, Bill?
Oh no,
Anyways,
yeah.
I got a question here, and you mentioned the Drew trade, and that's a perfect segue. So, is Owen Tippett becoming a major piece for the Flyers? This is coming from Big Al here at EOP. Big game the other night in LA. A beautiful goal by Owen Tippett there. He's been kind of on a scoring tear lately. I've always been an Owen Tippett fan. I thought it was actually a good move, and I think he is definitely a role piece or role player in the future of this team. How do you stand on Owen Tippett?
No, I've really liked what I've seen out of Owen Tippett this year. It's a little slow in the goal scoring department to start. Charlie interviewed Jim Jackson to start the season, and JJ sitting there. I think he's going to score 40. And so it all kind of sets our mind of, all right, let's see if he takes that next step. 27 was nice. Let's see if he can get to that 30, 35 plus, that next level. And to start the year, he looked good, but he wasn't dominating the way he was. And just a little adjustment. Maybe he was depending too much on that great shot of his. He does have an excellent shot, but John Tortorella said, I want to see him carry the puck more to the net. Take the puck and take it to those scoring areas. And that's what we've seen. Granted, one of them's on a breakaway, and it's like, what else do you do? Pull up at the top of the circle and take a shot? Probably not. You're not Fulton Reeve. But like just the idea that he's going to use more than his shot in order to create chances has been great. And that's what we're seeing out of him all of a sudden. I expect that to continue. Like I said, I think all of the wrongs of the Chuck Fletcher era, he did Giroux gave him nothing. No leverage, anything.
Nope.
It was known that he only wanted to go to Florida. That was it. Despite that, Chuck Fletcher was able to get a guy who looks like he's going to figure into the second or third line on this team for the future, as well as a first-round draft pick. That's as well as you can get. That's as well as you can expect a GM to do in that circumstance. So I will give him credit for that one move. I like what I've seen out of Owen Tippett, and he's just one of the guys that this season is hugely important for. If you're looking for reasons to watch a team that has admitted they're rebuilding, a team that has admitted it's going to be a while before we're where we want to be, Owen Tippett is as much of a reason to watch as anyone else on this roster.
That brings me to the player that seems to be befuddling everybody here with this hockey team and in this city and with the coaching staff. That would be one Morgan Frost, Bill. Let's jump into a little bit of Morgan, because on the surface, to me, when I look about this yo-yo back and forth, he's benched, he's not, he's benched, he's not, I'm hearkened to the movie Moneyball. I don't know, Bill, if I'm sure you've seen Moneyball, the scene where Billy Beane is in the office of the manager saying, hey, I want Pena to play. I don't want Pena to play. I want Hatterberg at first. And the manager says, well, the lineup's mine. I'll play who I want. I'm kind of starting to feel that Morgan Frost might be caught in a Moneyball situation where Tortorella is not sold on him, but Danny Briere is. He finally found his way back in the lineup and had a 2-goal night against the Los Angeles Kings. First and foremost, are we dealing with the Moneyball situation, and what the hell is going on with Morgan Frost?
It's very funny that you make that analogy simply because Charlie and I recently said the exact same thing.
Oh.
He's a huge fan. He's a huge fan of the movie Moneyball. I love it as well. So, we were talking, and I was trying to set up how I'm seeing this going, and it's like, well, yeah, if they just trade Ryan Poehling or something, then if you do the Billy Beane thing and just take the toys away from the coach who says the lineup is his, then he has to play him. But we don't know if Danny Briere is a supporter of Morgan Frost, but to what extent? I think this guy's good. Okay, how good? Cutter Gauthier playing center right now. He's doing really well. He had a great freshman year. He's scoring a ton still in his sophomore year. Say he's a center. Sean Couturier. Yeah, looks like dude's back. Dude can play. Noah Cates. He looks like he's going to be a third-line center. Where does Morgan Frost actually fit in? Are you going to upset the apple cart and potentially be in some sort of power struggle with your head coach who clearly has a ton of say over a guy who, yeah, we believe in Morgan Frost, but how much? What's his actual ceiling? Is it, okay, he's a 2C, but not a great one? we're going to figure out how much the organization really believes in Morgan Frost, but I do think there is a little bit of push and pull right now. But I have to believe ultimately talent is going to win out. We're seeing the issues this team is having on the power play. It's like, well, they have trouble getting in the zone. Well, that's one thing Morgan Frost is really good at. And then we're seeing, well, this team, they're getting a ton of shots. They're getting a ton of chances. How come they're not getting to the dirty areas? Well, Morgan Frost took a puck behind the net and threw it into a dirty area the other night, gets a goal, gets another goal by going to the front of the net, getting a deflection. He's now doing what the coaches are asking of him. And it's going to be, okay, now that he's doing the right things, is he still in the doghouse? Is he still a bubble guy? It's a developing storyline. I'm not sold on Morgan Frost as a member of the next great Flyers team, but I want to know for sure. I want to know whether he has it or not. And the only way to do that is by playing him. And this has been one of the more frustrating parts of the season to start for sure.
Now, Bill, what about this theory? I mean, I know he's a C or 2C, 3C, whatever you want to put him at, but he's actually a winger. That's his natural place. Is he a centerman in the National Hockey League, or is he a winger in the National Hockey League? I don't think I've ever really seen him play wing any kind of sustained amount of time. Are we doing Morgan a disservice by not trying him out on the wing?
Especially when they were trying to, okay, where can we fit him? It's, well, we got a lot of wingers. Maybe he could move into that area. But from what Charlie has told me, different conversations with the front office, on and off the record, members of the coaching staff, what have you, he has a real aversion to contact. And you might think, oh, center, like you're in the middle. That's where all the contact is. Yes and no. One, the front of the net is no longer what it was, when I was growing up, when it's like, Darian Hatcher, Chris Therien, whoever, they're going to cross-check you in the head and it's totally legal. Good luck in front of the net. Like, like those days of having to be John LeClair's size to live in front of the net have gone by. But a lot of what you have to do defensively at wing is contact at the point. You have to be hitting the defenseman. You're going to absorb a lot of contact along the wall when you're the first outlet. And they think he actually can't do that. Like, that's the thing holding him back from playing the wing under John Tortorella. Now, maybe they're in a situation later in this season where there's a roster crunch and it's like, best dude we have is Morgan Frost for this position. Let's see how it goes. But it seems, and John Tortorella said as much in a recent press availability, he's a center. I look at his numbers in the faceoff dot. He's like 45% last year and this season. That's not getting it done. But there's other aspects of wing versus center that they don't feel confident in playing him at the wing as.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you about the aspect. So we're talking more of are they considering him a defensive liability as a winger? Is that what it is? Because I would think that, honestly, with his stature and his speed and his hands, the wing would suit him better on offense. So is it more of a defensive situation that they're trying to keep him away from? Is that what you think it is?
I definitely think it's a defensive thing. And honestly, this is where the John Tortorella bias comes in. And I think he's just not a fan of Morgan Frost. And so that's going to be the thing. Well, we could squeeze him into the lineup as a winger, but I don't really like him there. And if it was something like, he would come up with a reason not to put him in. I honestly believe Morgan Frost is a victim of the Tortorella bias. Now, we've seen a lot of guys progress and do well with Tortorella. Travis Konechny has scored like 42 goals in his last 70-some games. Like, that makes him a 40-goal scorer this pace he's on. That's far and above what I ever expected out of him.
Joel Farabee's coming along as well.
Joel Farabee, after a year in the doghouse, looks like he is coming along. Yeah. Noah Cates, we saw last year, learn a new position and work his way up to basically the team's 1C last year because they had no other centers. There are players he is helping bring along, and they get it, they buy in, but for whatever reason, Morgan Frost is not one of Torts' guys.
No, so it certainly seems that way, and I hope somebody, a cooler head prevails, and we can make a move that's best for the player and especially the team. All right, Bill, you mentioned it, and I'm going to get into it because I got a historically bad 4 for 52 on the power play through 15 games. Bill, that works out to a 7.7 effective rate. Bill, we're talking about a National Hockey League team that is lower than 10% effective on the power play. I'm not a big fan of the fire Rocky Thompson. It's all him. Listen, the power play is designed. It was created, or the superstar player was created for the power play. We don't have the type of talent to stick on a power play to make it work at a 25 to 30% effective rate. But Bill, 7.7, there's got to be something in between here that we can get to.
We can blame the personnel. And yeah, they don't have that guy. They don't have that guy who can take over and just kind of make the power play be what it is. Regardless of who's on the Capitals power play, you know what the idea is. Let's get the puck moving over here and then eventually find Ovechkin. Like when Giroux was running the Flyers power play, it was, let's get the puck on his stick, let's get everyone in position and let him make a decision. They just don't have that. And so your ceiling is going to be capped. However, 7, like, I'm sorry, like 10 to 15% would at least be like, that's still bad. Like, that's still not good, but at least it would be like, okay, they have some idea of what they're doing, but they don't have the guy who can put it away. We can complain about the personnel all we want, and it's warranted. They don't have a personnel to be the Edmonton, to be the Colorado, to be the Jersey power play. Sure. I'm looking for basic competence here. I'm looking for a goal one every 2 or 3 games. It's been 2 weeks since they scored it. They haven't scored a power play goal, I don't think, since the Anaheim game. How long ago was that? You were there.
That was October 28th.
That was weeks ago. It's almost Thanksgiving.
It was right before Halloween. Yeah. It is embarrassing, Bill. And just to put it in some sort of context, because you mentioned Claude Giroux, but since the 2021-22 season, and I keep these stats because I like to torture myself, the Flyers have gone 67 for 505 on the power play. That works out to about 13% effective. Again, that's nothing to shake a stick at, but it's above 10. I guess you can kind of take solace there, but something's got to give, Bill. And I don't know if it's personnel groupings. Again, is he trying to get blood from a stone? I don't know, but Rocky Thompson to me is not the problem. I think he's doing the best he can do with what he's got to work with. We saw when they fired AV and Michel Therrien, and that one of the problems a few years ago was, the power plays got awful. It was actually worse under Mike Yeo going down the stretch of the season. So I'm not firing the coordinator is not really what I'm looking to do here.
Yeah, listen, a rebuilding team is not going to fire one of its assistant coaches a month into the season. Like, that just isn't going to happen. And I'm sure he could be doing something better, but the players just have to go make a play. Like I always say, whether I'm watching the Sixers, the Eagles, or whatever, you can blame the coaches, and maybe they're not putting the players in the best position. But there ain't no rule about going and making a play. Just be better than the guy in front of you. Like, it happens. We see awful teams score power play goals. Like, you can do it. The penalty kill and power play have scored the same number of goals this season. That's comical. Like, that's not NHL hockey. That's something else.
It is something else. Absolutely. As you mentioned, the 4 shorthanded goals. Let's talk about the penalty kill. Pretty impressive. 48 times shorthanded, 38 kills, 79.2% effective on the shorthanded on the PK. I'll take that, Bill. And then the other stat that grabs me about this team, and this is something that I really had to kind of go over a few times because I wasn't sure I had the numbers right. The Flyers are out shooting their opponents on average a night, 32 to 28. Bill, that's unheard of for a Flyers team over the last few seasons. What do you attribute that to? And then also the lack of power play effectiveness, because they're obviously getting the shots on net. What are you attributing that to?
Yeah, I do think first of all, they have some players back who are just effective NHLers. Having Sean Couturier can't be understated. Cam Atkinson as well. Both of those guys, big players at 5-on-5 and on the penalty kill. So I think you can attribute a lot of the success there. But again, I think you have to look at the coaching and say, look at what this team is doing in terms of team defense and shot suppression. Their goalies, for the most part, are not under great duress. They've had a few games where they've given up 30, 35 shots. that's going to happen. But for the most part, like you said, yeah, it's under 30 every night. They're doing a really good job of keeping teams to the outside when they are on offense and making play move through the neutral zone towards offense when it's 50-50 pucks and things like that. I do think just another year of John Tortorella coaching this team to play the style of defense he wants has gone a long way in making them look competent. I started the show saying, listen, yeah, the wins losses hasn't been great, but I watch them most nights and go, this is a decent enough hockey. They're watchable. I'm not in pain watching them every night.
No.
Like, it's not a chore the way it was the last year and a half or so. They're actually a pretty competent hockey team, and I do chalk that one up to coaching. So it's that, once again, it's the balanced conversation of the pros and cons of John Tortorella. He's going to instill a culture. He's going to instill a style of play. The team is going to work. The team is going to do the little things, and he's going to break some eggs as well.
Yeah. No, and then you mentioned, so let's kind of push the game a little bit inside now. Let's get down to where the problem might be when you're holding a team down to some low shot totals every night. Let's talk about the goaltending a little bit. Let's start, of course, with Carter Hart. Is he tearing it apart? No. Is he well above average? Yeah. Is he kind of in the middle somewhere? Maybe. He gets hurt. He's going to be gone for 6 weeks, but he's coming back 8 days later, and then he's getting food poisoning. But no, he's being traded. Oh no, he's really got food poisoning. So don't worry, he's not being traded. All the Flyer stuff, all his social media stuff. First and foremost, and I don't know if you have any knowledge of this, and if you do, please break it here. But you think Carter is feeling the pressure of this Canadian Hockey U18 World Junior investigation? Do you think that might have something to do with some of his sporadic play this year?
I'm sure the uncertainty isn't easy. Like, none of us really know what went on, what's going to go on, any of the fallout from the situation. It's just kind of this cloud looming over Carter Hart and all the players involved. And because of that, the organization, you talk about trading him, the different things. Like, do you want to build around him? He's going to be due a contract at the end of this season. It's just a real big question mark about the present and future of Carter Hart. The injury is one thing. Like, we did a whole topic this week is Carter Hart durable? And we wouldn't go so far as to say he's injury prone. Like, this is a guy fell on him,
Yeah.
But he does tend to get banged up a little every year. Maybe he's a dude that you can count on for 50, 55, but not those 60, 65 starts that you see some of the elite goalies get. I've liked his play for the most part this year. The team has been much better in front of him, and I think his numbers reflect that. That said, this is still not an all-star team in front of Carter Hart. He can only do so much, and the same goes for Sam Ersson and whoever else plays in net for this team. The ceiling is going to be capped, but I think they've gotten decent enough goaltending for the most part this year. Obviously, I want to see Carter Hart, if he is especially going to be a part of this thing, the future, if he's going to get a big contract, 7-8 years this offseason, I'm going to see him kill it. I'm going to see him be a Vezina candidate. I'm going to see him steal them games. I don't know if he's done that to this point, but he's been pretty good.
Yeah, and I preface this by saying I realize when you're talking about giving up on a goalie that shows some promise and it was highly touted as he was coming in, and it's the Flyers, because we've been looking for a goaltender for going on 40 years now, and now we got one. He looks like he might be the guy. I hope we're not trying to talk ourselves into that more than he really is, but is he something that you can build around? Absolutely, Bill. But there's a team looming out there right now that's got Stanley Cup aspirations and also a connection to Carter Hart. And there's one problem with this team with Stanley Cup aspirations, that they have no goaltending, and that would be the Edmonton Oilers, where Carter Hart is from, a suburb of Edmonton. They're running out there on a nightly basis. Calvin Pickard, Ryan Fanti, I don't know who the hell that is, and then Stuart Skinner, sounds like a Southern rock singer. And they're running the likes of these guys out there every night. They're 3-9-1. Draisaitl and McDavid can't be happy. Another year of this nonsense with the goaltending. If the Edmonton Oilers come a-calling, are you listening, Bill?
Oh, I am absolutely listening. Like, I want Carter Hart to be the guy for the Flyers, and I want there to be no question. But we are in a rebuild. Like, that is what this team is doing, and it's got to be about right. Like, drafting Matvei Mishkov gave you a timeline. How do we have the best possible team 3, 4, 5 years from now? That's what it's all about. And if listen, I'm not doing it for anything but a king's ransom. I need firsts, I need prospects, maybe an NHL player who's young, borderline guy, even if it's Edmonton's version of Morgan Frost, something like that, an Owen Tippett kind of guy, whatever it is. Like, I need a king's ransom for it, but Edmonton is in that position where we have Stanley Cup aspirations. We're trying to get Leon Draisaitl to sign an extension this summer. We're trying to make sure Connor McDavid doesn't go anywhere 2 years from now. They need to show that they're committed to having a Stanley Cup team. And if I'm Danny Briere, that means show me the money. Like, show me your best possible proposal, and I'm absolutely listening. It is difficult to win without goaltending. But we've seen it doesn't take that $10 million goalie to get it done. You just have to have a guy who plays like that for a couple of weeks. Yep. We saw it with Sergei Bobrovsky. Now, he is that $10 million goalie, but since he signed that contract in Florida, he's been like a 900 save percentage guy. He played like a superstar for a few weeks, and they went to the Stanley Cup final. And you see a good enough team around a goalie. Look at what Colorado did. And listen, Colorado's chock full of, Hall of Fame guys, all-stars, absolutely. But look what they did. They walked away from their goalie after they won a Stanley Cup. They're like, all right, we're good. Enjoy your free agent contract that this team helped you get. It's goaltending is very, very difficult to sustain, and it's very difficult to evaluate year to year. It would be a bummer to see a dude who we've all pegged as the Flyers' number one for, it feels like a decade now, kind of go away and then have that chance to maybe compete for a cup in Edmonton. But if the return is right, I could very easily be talked into it.
Yeah, I think the Flyers will be foolish not to listen. I think everybody's on the table right now, with maybe the exception of maybe Cam York. I wouldn't want to talk about, because when you go to the younger guys, you got to have something to build around. But absolutely, in my opinion, Carter Hart is on the table. But you're right; it had to be a very, very one-sided offer. I mean, I'm giving up Carter Hart, that's it, and you're giving me back like 9 pieces, like something along those lines. Bill, before we transition to the future, because I want to get your opinion on some players that are currently toiling around in junior hockey and in the NCAA, and some Flyers prospects as well that are toiling. But at 7-7-1, coming off of let's face it, a surprising West Coast trip. Bill, I did the post game on this network right after the San Jose Shark game. Bill, we do these post games live. I don't wait till the next day. I stay up to 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I report on a game that I just watched. And you know what it was for me to sit there and watch that dreck of an effort against the San Jose Sharks and then actually come report on it? I just couldn't do it, Bill. It was very hard to be positive or even informative other than venting when it came to something like that. But then they turn around and they played out 6 goals against Anaheim, and then they beat LA the other night, and just really shocking, a back-to-back win. They came back-to-back nights against the Kings, who beat them 5-0 last week in the same similar situation. Bill, what is your take on the West Coast trip right off the bat? What's your take on it?
It's like, if they beat the Sharks and lose both of the other 2 games, and like maybe lose one in overtime or something, you go, all right, well, that's basically what I expected. They play 2 great games against the Kings, who I think should be considered one of the Stanley Cup favorites right now, the way they're playing, and the Ducks, who have enough young talent. The surprising start maybe shouldn't be that surprising to us, but they've been pretty good. Like, you see what they're capable of, and that's what makes something like the Sharks game so frustrating. Like, to me, that was a must-win game. I called it my Stanley Cup. I was so excited to watch that one, because I during the game, I likened it to, I was like, this is what people must have felt when they're watching USA, USSR at Lake Placid in 1980, because every shot was so dramatic. It was like, oh my, is this the one? Oh my God. Like, but at the end of the day, like, they're just not that good. And you look at the shot total at the end of the game, it's like, well, the Flyers kind of dominated. Actually, no, I think that was one of their worst games of the season, even though they won the shot battle by about 25. Like everything came from the outside. It really looked like for the first 40 minutes, the Flyers went, oh, we're better than them. And yeah, you are, but they're not better enough than anyone to actually think that. And John Tortorella said as much. Like, they better not be able to spell trap game this team. Like, we're not that good. And they fell into it. The Sharks they were never going to go 0-82. They come out 2 nights later, they beat Edmonton, and that sent Edmonton into disarray. And I get it. Like, but still, you need to beat a team that doesn't have an NHL roster. Like, I found that very, very frustrating. The Flyers, if you're going to be the team that outworks everyone, we don't overlook anyone, we're that hard work. No, we don't have the talent, but we have that work ethic. Well, then you got to go beat a team with absolutely no talent. And they just didn't. And that's frustrating. But I guess we can't, in an 82-game season, let one game overshadow, like, okay, and then what did they do? Well, they came out and played great 2 nights in a row. Like Friday, Saturday, what are my complaints? I have none. So it's just, when you're in it like the way we are in this bubble, it means everything. And then you take a step back and go, of course. Like, of course this is what they did to the freaking Flyers.
Yeah, no, you're right. And it was hard, man. But, I got Jazz right back up against the Ducks and the Kings. One last stat from that Sharks game. The Flyers were out face-off 74% to 32%. The Flyers won 32% of their face-offs in that game. It's unheard of at the NHL level, Bill.
It's hard to do. Like, the Sharks actually came in. One of the only things that the Sharks are good at is face-offs. Like, when I was doing just a little pregame research, I'm just, sorting all the NHL stats, seeing where the Sharks, I'm like sorting by face-off. I'm like, oh, did I do this backwards? Oh, no, they're actually at the top of a category. They were like a 53% team. They were decent. But 30%, like, no, I'm sorry. It's a 50. At the end of the day, they're 50-50 puck battles. Like, yes, there are dudes who are great at them. Claude Giroux, excellent. Bergeron, excellent. But, like, 30? You lost 70% of the faceoffs in what is essentially a 50-50 puck battle. That tells me you weren't focused enough.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then the second part of my question is, at 7-1 off the West Coast trip, you got an interesting game looming against Carolina, but I guess the schedule makers took care of the Flyers, enabled the Flyers to come home, spend a couple days, and then go down to Raleigh and finish off their road trip before coming back home to face the Knights and the Blue Jackets back to back over the weekend. 7-1, Bill. I know it's not the midway point of anything, but where are you at 7-1 with this team?
I am free of expectation. That's honestly, like, I'm being torn in multiple directions with how I want this season to go. One hand, I just like seeing them more competitive. You know how it is watching every game.
Yeah.
I want to be entertained. I don't want to feel like I'm doing a chore sitting down and watching a hockey game, especially when it's my favorite team. At the same time, I get that the point of the rebuild is to ultimately acquire as much high-end talent as is humanly possible. And the easiest way to do that is lose as much as you can and get a top 5 draft pick. So I'm really torn on what I've seen so far. It looked like they were starting to spiral a bit. They had that 3-1 start, and then it got out of hand. And now they're right back at, hockey 500 at 7-1. I am looking forward to the roller coaster ride that is going to be this team this year. Oh my God, they're the worst team in hockey. Oh, actually, are they a wild card contender? Like, I am looking forward to treating it like the Eagles, like every single game, like that Sharks game. It was my Stanley Cup, even though it's just some random game on a Tuesday or Wednesday in November, like, they're giving us kind of a free pass year, in which I don't think there's a wrong way to be a fan this year. It's just, always remember, they know they're not that good and they're rebuilding. As long as they keep the big picture, I think we can get lost in the day-to-day.
Yeah, and you mentioned watching competitive hockey and fun hockey and hockey that's back to back and not back to back, but back and forth. It definitely is a lot more, it is fun, but you just at certain points of the games, Bill, I'm looking at these games. I'm like, the Flyers are playing well, but they just don't got the horses to get the job done. They're going to wilt under the pressure eventually, and that's why you have a 3-12 overtime record last year and 0-1, only one overtime game so far this year. I don't know how they've managed that, but they've only been in the one overtime game so far this year. But it's a good foundation, Bill. But I'm going to want to start seeing some apartments being built on my foundation here real soon. And let's transition to that now. Of course, it's all about the future here for this team. And two of the centerpieces are currently ongoing in their seasons right now. You mentioned Cutter Gauthier. Let's talk a little bit about him, the Boston College product. I actually, for the first time ever, I don't know why I hadn't done this earlier, but I sat down the other night and watched him play, thank God for ESPN Plus. Play a game against the Maine. I don't know where they Black Bears. I don't know where they are, but Maine. It was the number one ranked Boston College Eagles versus Maine. Maine beat them, knocked down number one. But listen, Bill, I wasn't impressed. I watched UDA last year in the World Juniors. He was a lot better. But to me, and I don't know if this is a Boston College thing, they had him living on the perimeter. He was seemingly afraid to go down low or to get involved in a play, but all he was out in the perimeter. Now, again, one game doesn't give this guy the credit that he deserves, and I know he is, for the most part of the future. He's got 10 games, 8 goals, 3 assists, 11 penalty minutes, 6 penalty minutes, and he's a +1, Bill. That's also an alarming stat so far on him for the year. But again, am I wrong about my assessment? Do you think it's coaching here, or what did I see here the other night with him?
No, I've heard from a lot of different people that it seems like while last year he was learning to play center and all that, he was scoring in a lot of different ways. And this year it seems as if he's relying heavily on that shot. He's living just to snipe and maybe not get to the net as much. I don't know if that's a coaching thing. I don't know if he's just trying to show off the shot. It's tough to say when it's like outside the organization.
Yeah.
If he's in the AHL or something, you'd have a lot better idea of, all right, well, this is what everyone else is doing. Maybe they're just asking him to do that, but obviously, like we're seeing with Tyson Forster, like we're seeing with Morgan Frost, yes, you can beat a goalie with a shot. But for the most part in the NHL, that ain't happening on a regular basis. You need to get your ass to the net, and you need to live in the low slot. It sounds like he's not doing that as much this year. I gotta believe once this coaching staff gets his hands on him, he's not a small guy. He can skate. He's got the physicality that they're going to have him trying to generate offense in a plethora of ways. But it's definitely something to keep an eye on. The last thing this team needs is more perimeter guys.
Yes, I agree with you, Bill. I don't need another perimeter shooter. I need someone that's going to go low and go for rebounds and put pucks on net and cash in. I mean, finish. That's the word, right, Bill? Finish.
Got to finish.
Got to finish.
It's what the other team struggles with most at this point.
Absolutely. And the other high-touted prospect is our number one pick from this past year, Matty Michkov, who is currently on loan from St. Petersburg to HK Sochi. 23 games, 10 goals, 11 assists, 21 points, 12 penalty minutes, and Bill, -3. What the hell's that all about?
The team is not good. Like, that's the one thing you always have to remember with a plus-minus stat is teams that give up a lot of goals are going to have dudes who are minus. And that's basically what I'm getting out of Sochi. He's creating offense. I know he had a little bit of a slump for a while there because he was operating over a point a game, but it seems like he's coming back around. Always have to remember that this is a teenager in a man's league. That's the other part about it's the KHL is not a developmental league. That's why he's not with his parent club, because that's a team with championship aspirations and they don't have time. I think there is a bit of, oh, so you want to go to the NHL, huh? Well, guess what? You're not playing. But it's not
You're not here for us. The hell with you.
Exactly. It's not a developmental league. It is a place for men, and it is a place where everyone is focused on winning right now. And the numbers he's putting up offensively, considering all of that he is a teenager, that he's not even on the team, that he was like in training camp and all that with, I think it speaks pretty highly of what he's going to be when he does mature and ultimately come over to the NHL. I mean, what he did in his first 10 or so games was unbelievable, and it doesn't seem as if he's slowed a ton since then.
And don't get me wrong. I think that obviously those two individuals are key to this whole thing turning around here in a couple of years. And I expect to see Gauthier at the minimum wearing orange and black by sometime in early April. He better be. If he decides to go back for year 3, I think I have a lot of serious questions at that point.
That would be a little concerning. Like
yes.
when they drafted him, Gauthier said, "Oh, I'm hoping to be one and done," and then he ends up going back, and it seems like that was a collaborative decision. But if he doesn't join this team in the spring, that would be a little bit of a red flag if he doesn't join 3 years after he was drafted.
Absolutely. And now, Bill, I want to turn our attention to the last segment. I know I've had you on long, and I appreciate it. We always seem to run long when you're here. But last thing I want to talk about, it's never too early, Bill, to look ahead at the summer in the NHL Draft 2024 version. There's 3 players, Bill, that have caught my eye since last year, and I've been keeping an eye on them throughout the early part of this season. And I want your take on all 3 of them, as much as you can give me. The first player is the consensus number 1, Macklin Celebrini. He's playing currently for the University of Boston. He is a center, 9 games in, 8 goals, 10 assists, 18 points, 4 penalty minutes, and a +6. What is your take on Macklin? Again, consensus number 1. He ain't no Connor Bednar, I'll give you that much. But what do you like about Macklin coming into the draft next summer?
It just seems like he's got that all-around game, and it doesn't appear as if anyone believes him to have that superstar generational talent. It doesn't seem like there's a race to the bottom the way there was last year where, the Ducks off to a bit of a bad start. They should fire their coach. Nah, we'd rather just be bad.
We got Connor Bednar.
I see a lot of it doesn't seem as if there's that, but he's the consensus. Now we're Cole Yzerman and players like that seem to be pushing their way up, but all accounts is this kid is absolutely killing it as a freshman in the NCAA. And what else can you ask for?
And again, if you're wanting to see him, just tune in to ESPN Plus or this summer, or in a couple of weeks, or about a month from now, when the World Junior Championships will start in Sweden. I love that tournament right there after Christmas. It's a perfect way to spend your Christmas holiday watching some great international hockey. Let's now talk about Cole Yzerman. He's my other player. Left winger, currently splitting time between the NTDP, which plays in the the United States Hockey League, and the U.S. national team. Altogether, Cole has played 21 games, 28 goals, 11 assists, 39 points, 2 penalty minutes in 21 games, and a gaudy +28. Billy's a left winger. We don't really need too many more left wingers, but I'll be goddamned if Cole Yzerman ain't standing there when we're picking. I'm not taking him. I actually like him better than Macklin Celebrini. What are you saying on Yzerman?
There are people who really like Yzerman's creativity, his hockey IQ. I'm not turning down any high-end talent this team can come across. If it comes, I mean, you're going to need the 2nd or 3rd pick in the draft in order to get someone like a Cole Yzerman. And you could always have draft lottery luck. That certainly happens. But this team just badly needs that high-end talent, and the idea of fit, we have so many wingers. Can we play him on his offside? Is he a natural left? It's all about making it work after the fact. Get as many great players as you can. And I always say these lottery tickets, these good young talent, get the star talent, get the star caliber player, guy with the pedigree, and you can always turn them into something later. I think back to I always think of Jonathan Drouin and how highly touted he was coming out. Hashtag I dream of Drouin, all that. And he's just not quite working out for Tampa. But because he has that pedigree still, let's turn him into Mikhail Sergachev. You can always turn one of those guys into something you actually need. So regardless of what the fit is, the skill set, someone else out there is going to want it. And it's never a bad thing to add high-end talent.
No, hell no. And then my last player that I've been looking at, and it fits on the line of our blue line, Sam Dickinson, a left-handed defenseman who currently plays for the London Knights in the OHL of the CHL. 18 games played, 3 goals, 10 assists, 13 points, 4 penalty minutes, and another gaudy plus 19. One common stat among all these kids is the low penalty minutes. I'm digging that. They're not taking penalties. And when you're looking at a defenseman who's got a plus 19 bill, there's something to that. It might not be a tangible that shows up on the stat sheet, but that's something I'm looking at.
Absolutely. And if I'm never on the side of drafting for need, but defense is clearly what this Flyers team is lacking the most. And if you use it as a tiebreaker, like you have 2 guys there, say you're drafting 3rd, 4th, 5th, whatever, and there's 2 players there, you have them equally rated, yeah, then take the defenseman. But this team clearly, whether it's through the draft or later on in free agency trades, defense is what they need to focus on most, rebuilding this blue line. I mean, it's the Flyers blue line right now is kind of outperforming expectations, but even by that standard, who's really going to be here when this team is good again? Yes, Sanheim under contract, hopefully York, but Sean Walker, one of the steadying forces, well, he's a free agent after this year. They're going to re-sign him. I'd be shocked if he's not traded at the deadline. And then from there, it's role players, Sealer, Zamula. I like Igor Zamula a lot. What's he, a 3rd pair defenseman on a good team, though? So it's the focus on defense absolutely has to be there, whether it's at the draft or later on in this rebuilding process.
Bill, always insightful as usual. Before I let you go, again, please inform the good people out there where they can find you anywhere.
Yeah, podcast. Just search PHLY Flyers. We're on the All Philly YouTube page. Make sure you subscribe there and follow us on Twitter at PHLY_Flyers.
All right, Bill, please, not a stranger. I'm going to talk to you sometime, maybe around the All-Star break, so we can get another check-in, okay?
Looking forward to it.
All right, Bill Matz, everybody, thank you very much for joining me. Man, we always run late when I talk to Bill. I always say, hey, man, come on for like 25 minutes, and now here we are an hour into it. But I want to appreciate and thank Bill for his time. Again, insightful talk about the Flyers, intelligent, insightful talk about the Flyers. We're pretty much aligned on where our feelings are with this team. But that segment here on the Edge of Philly Sports, let me get this, I got to get better at this. I'm getting heat from above. That segment on the program was brought to you in part by Dolan's, 24 East Sellers Ave in Ridley Park. DolansBar.com for Quizzo music, great times, and memorabilia giveaway. And you never know who may fall through, or not fall through the front door, but go through the front door, come into the front door, walk through the front door. Visit Dolan's, tell them tell PJ and the crew, Matty B and EOP sent you, and that we wish you well. All right, so let's kind of transition, because I want to save some of my Eagles stuff for Saturday and Kyle Quinn and the Birds Blast, but let's talk a little bit about this team. Again, I led this show off with this day in Philadelphia sports history. This was the loss to the Cleveland Browns on this day in 1994, November 13th. It started the Eagles on a 7-game losing streak to wrap up the 94 season, ultimately costing Rich Kotite his job. Now, I know that what I speak here, a 7-game losing streak to wrap up the season, I realize that is Greek or Latin to a lot of the millennial crowd out there, because they don't understand what that could be like. And how could they? They've never lived in it. But I have. And everyone asks me, why are you such a Debbie Downer? Why are you so jaded? Well, because I have history. I've been taken to the closet a few too many times by this team, all right? So I guess that was maybe not the right analogy to use, but you get my point. But I got history. And I don't necessarily want it to happen, nor do I expect it to happen, but it's there. And getting this holier than thou, higher than mighty, 8-1, look at us beating our chests. What does that trophy look like? What does the 8-1 trophy look like in the National Football League? We have a whole half of football left. And it's an interesting half right off the bat with the next 5 games. So as much as I don't believe that the Eagles are going to finish the season on a 7-game losing streak, whatever it might be at this point, I don't know, 8-game, I can't do the math when it's 17, but it has happened. And pump the brakes, gear down, throttle back, whatever analogy you want to use here. let's just take this thing one game at a time. Let's recognize that the football team that is currently residing in South Philadelphia is a good one. I'll give you that. But it's not a perfect one. It's flawed. It's flawed up and down. It's got spotty coverage in the defensive backfield. It doesn't seem to want to run the football. And it's got some banged up people. So let's enjoy this while we can. But let's not lose sight. We haven't won anything under Nick Sirianni. We've only won one Super Bowl in the last 57 Super Bowls. We don't have the room to be obnoxious about how things are for this team. Because as good as they are and as quick as they've gotten this good, it can flip. I've seen it. If you would have tapped me on the shoulder in 1994, now of course I was 21 back then, and carefree and footloose and all that, and I didn't have much time for the Eagles with all the ladies. But when I was watching them, if you would have told me when they were, as a matter of fact, the seventh win that season was a Monday night game against the Minnesota Vikings. I'll never forget it. It was a demolishing of the Vikings. Randall Cunningham tore them apart, or took them apart. And it was great. And we were going to win the Super Bowl. But unfortunately, it was week 9, not week 19. And after that, it was a 7-game losing streak. So I'm just telling you, it can happen. Take it day by day. Enjoy it while you have it. But let's not lose sight that we're some mystical unicorn that cannot be defeated. We can be. And as we get ready for the Chiefs on Monday night to battle against Andy Reid, who is 27-4 coming off the bye, who is undefeated coaching against the Eagles. As we get ready to battle him on the biggest stage, the biggest NFL stage of the week, Monday Night Football in Kansas City, little Super Bowl, in your face type stuff going on, I'm sure, on both sides of the ball. Let's take it for what it's worth. This team is flawed. They're talented. They have the ability to be a Super Bowl team, a Super Bowl winning team, but they are flawed. Let's not give them more than what they deserve. And right now they deserve to be 8-1. But that's it. So that's all. And again, I'm going to save the majority of this for Kyle. We'll get into the breakdown on Birds Blast later in the week, Saturdays at noon, here on the Talking Philly Sports with Matty B program. There it is, the Birds Blast with Mr. Kyle Quinn. So make sure you're tuned in for that every Saturday around noon. So that's all I'm going to really kind of talk about the Eagles. I want to save my last rant for the Phillies because we are into that part of the season now. We have a World Series winner, the Texas Rangers, victorious over the Arizona Diamondbacks in 5 games. We are in the offseason. Aaron Nola is a free agent. He was tendered an offer. I haven't heard much more about it. He's expecting, what is the numbers I've heard? He's looking at around $20 million a year. Are you insane, Aaron Nola? $20 million a year? What's it, about 7 years he's looking at, or 5 years or something? I don't think the Phillies are going to give that money. But when you look at this thing, and you look at the situation that the Phillies starting rotation is in, should we not maybe give the money to Aaron Nola? And let me explain myself, because it's layered, multiple layers, right? Aaron Nola is a free agent now, looking for the payday, looking for his final payday of his career. Zach Wheeler is a free agent next year. What do you think he's going to be looking for? Hometown discount? Cap-friendly deal? No. Zach Wheeler's probably going to want more, and to be honest with you, Zach Wheeler probably deserves more. But here's my point. Are you giving the big contract to Aaron Nola, or are you giving the big contract to Zach Wheeler? Because everyone seems to get kind of blown away by the fact that we're going to have to give out this huge sum of money. Well, guess what? It's going to one of them two. Because right now, if the Phillies maintain this window of winning now philosophy, if they want to be a World Series contender now and in the immediate future, you can't let Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola walk away. One of them two is going to have to stay because of this reason, because of Andrew Painter, and not because of him personally, of course. And I'm not going to lay it on his feet. But the injury to Andrew Painter really screwed Dave Dombrowski and the Phillies this year. Not because Andrew Painter was going to come in and be this great savior to the pitching staff. No, not at all. Even though it was the plan, because that was even though they said he had to earn a roster spot, they didn't do nothing with the starting rotation other than add Taijuan Walker, who we all saw how that worked out. And we lost 3 starters last year through the free agency. Remember that? We lost Eflin, Gibson, and Syndergaard last year in free agency, and we replaced them with one external piece in Taijuan Walker, and we were going to replace another one with an internal piece in Andrew Painter. That was the plan. Now, Painter goes down to spring training and gets hurt, and he now requires Tommy John, and we're not even going to be able to see him pitch again until about 2025. That screwed Dave Dombrowski and the Phillies under this current conscript, because now we don't have an answer. Because I think the plan was they would have seen enough from Painter to maybe feel better with Nola walking away, and then putting all that money into Zach Wheeler, potentially on a 3 to 4 year deal next at the end of 24, to try to keep the stability of that pitching staff intact. But now we don't have that. We don't have the Andrew Painter safety net. We don't know what's going on with Abel either. Abel's entering his 5th year now in the minor leagues. 2024 will be his 5th year toiling in the minor leagues with the Philadelphia Phillies. At what point does this kid have to kind of put up or shut up? 5 years is a long time for a pitcher to be down in the minors. I mean, he was drafted with a high draft pick in 2020, but he doesn't seem to be able to get his act together. So where does he fit into all this? McGeary, another one. Granted, he's dealing with injuries. He might be further along than Abel is. But those two are 2 unknown pieces to the starting rotation pie. We were hoping, and I know Dombrowski was expecting, to have at least 2 of them figured out by now, to be the bridge to replace Nola and Wheeler. We don't have that bridge anymore. And if you looked around at some of the starting pitchers that are available in free agency, there's a few high talented names like Schnell, Crenshaw, there's a Kershaw, there's a couple of them out there, right? But if you do the average age of all the top, say 10 starting pitching free agents, it's about 32 years old. These guys are old. Are you really going to are you going to break the bank for one of them? So I don't know if you let Nola walk away. I don't know if the Phillies can. Because if they let Nola walk away, then they're obviously not going to let Wheeler walk. They can't if they want to win now. 1 or 2 of those guys is getting that money. I don't know who it is. And it's not a matter of, the Phillies they can't afford that kind of type of contract and that kind. No, bullcrap. They're going to have to give it to at least one of them. One of them is getting that money. Now, if they let Nola go, they obviously decided that Nola's not the answer and that they feel confident in maybe McGeary or Abel taking a step, maybe signing one of these older free agents to a 1-year deal, inserting them as the number 2, praying to God it works out for a year. And then you can add in Abel and McGeary in 2025 or potentially in the back end of 24, or maybe even coming out of camp, because I definitely think McGeary and Abel are going to get a solid look this spring down in Clearwater. There's no doubt in my mind that's going to happen. But what do you do here when it comes to the Aaron Nola money? Is it the Aaron Nola money or is it the Zach Wheeler money? Time will tell whether the Phillies feel comfortable enough to give the money up to Aaron Nola or they're going to give it to Zach Wheeler. Because if they don't give it to Nola, they're giving it to Wheeler. If they give it to Nola, Zach Wheeler is gone at the end of next year. Simple as that, if the Phillies want to maintain that window of winning, because the Andrew Painter effect has hurt this team, has put things kind of on the back, or not the back burner, but kind of like clouded the vision of what the winning formula is going to be for this rotation. And then when you look at Taijuan Walker, is he your number 3? Is this the guy we're going to go with for our number 3 starter? Who, he had 15 wins on the season, but didn't pitch a lick in the postseason. I mean, something's got to be done there. We got to get I would like to get an answer to why he didn't pitch at all in the postseason. But what is the, oh my God, I'm going to break a story here in a second. I'll break it right now. The University of Pennsylvania has just defeated Villanova, the 21 ranked team in the nation in basketball, 76-72 in a Big Five game. Are you kidding me? UP has beat Nova. Wow. There you hear it here first, folks. I cannot believe what I'm seeing. The Quakers have defeated the Wildcats on the Big Five stage. You heard it here first on Talking Philly Sports with Matty B. Whoa, I've seen enough now, baby. Woo! 76-72. Wow. All right. Anyway, finishing up my Andrew Painter and Phillies point. It hurt them. It has pushed them back. And I don't know what the answer is here. You know, it's going to be very telling, though. And it's got nothing to do with the money. That's my point. I don't think it's going to have anything to do with the money or the years. It's going to be whether or not they want Nola or Wheeler to continue on for at least another for 4 seasons as a Philly. But it ain't going to be both of them. So as we wait for the Aaron Nola drama to kind of play out, there's other free agent news coming out of Philadelphia. This past week, Bryce Harper met with the brass there, and it was decided that he will pursue and continue to play first base for this baseball team in the future. The Phillies agree that that's possibly the best place for him, seemingly ending the Rhys Hoskins experiment here in the city of Philadelphia. And let me be the first. If no one else has said it, let me be the first. Hallelujah! Thank you, God. So long, Rhys. Take your substandard defense and your streaky ass hitting somewhere else. 7 years, too long. See you later. Good riddance. God forbid. Goodbye. Adios. Sayonara. All that. Woo. Now let's hope that that's what happens. I hope the Phillies don't turn around and sign Hoskins to some sort of 1-year deal. Put him on the bench. I don't want to see that. I want to see a better option off the bench. But Rhys Hoskins' time in Philadelphia is seemingly done as Bryce Harper. It is agreed that Bryce Harper will continue on as the Phillies' first baseman. And the Phillies are very early on in the stages of free agency. And we are going to be coming at you here on this network very soon, folks. Very, very soon with a Fighting's Final 2023 season end review show of the Phillies season here, hopefully within the week. So we're putting the finishing touches on that. So be on the lookout for that one. But there's my take so far on Phillies free agency. Some other news, issues. Scott Kingerly was non-tendered. They didn't pick up his option, so he is now effectively a free agent. That contract is finally done. So another Matt Klentak mistake off the books, thank God. So things are progressing slowly throughout the first stages of the offseason, but the Phillies making some moves here at the early point. But Aaron Nola obviously is the big story. Does he stay? Does he go? If he goes, then who's coming? If he stays, then that, to me, signals the end of Zach Wheeler at the end of next season, which I don't think I'd be on board for. I would much prefer to keep Zach Wheeler around for 2 or 3 more years after 2024 than give Aaron Nola what he's looking for. But I don't know. Zach Wheeler's been lucky with the injuries. He is injury prone or has been. Does that end? You never know. But interesting how this is all going to play out, as I refer to it as the Painter effect of what's the Phillies are now dealing with when it comes to these high-priced free agent pitchers. Whew. And so that's my Phillies rant. So I'm gonna wrap things up. I've been on the air hour and 20 minutes, but I'll take it any time of the week or any day of the week when it comes to talking to Bill Matz. But I'm not regretting it. But I'm gonna finish things up as I do one every week with my Week 11 NFL picks. Kind of recap you on where I am on Week 10. Week 10 is still ongoing as I talk to you, but going into tonight, I am 5-8 with one more game left to play. On the week, which is god-awful. Now 84-62 on the season, which is god-awful. But I'm not going to quit. I'm going to keep pushing through to the end on this one. Here are my Week 11 picks. Eagles in Kansas City, you're going to have to wait till Saturday for that one. I will reveal that with Kyle on our show. Cincinnati and Baltimore, this is your Thursday night game. Give me Cincinnati, even though I'm not really sure what's going on in Cincinnati. And I think Pittsburgh might end up winning that division, honestly. But I'm still going to go with Cincinnati over Baltimore. It's going to be a tough one. I would not be surprised if Baltimore won, but give me Cincinnati. Pittsburgh and Cleveland, give me Pittsburgh. Chicago and Detroit, give me Detroit. The Chargers and the Packers, give me the Chargers. The Raiders and Miami, give me Miami. Giants and Washington, boy, the Giants, man. Is there not a more snake-bitten franchise right now in all of professional football? Not that I'm upset about it, but I'm just making a statement, boy. That is just a dumpster fire, man. The Giants and the Redskins, or yeah, the hell with Redskins. Give me the Redskins. Dallas and Carolina. Give me Carolina. We'll never pick the Cowboys, folks. You know this. Tennessee and Houston, or I'm sorry, Tennessee and Jacksonville. Give me Jacksonville. Arizona and Houston. Give me Houston. Tampa and San Fran. San Fran. The Jets and Buffalo. Buffalo. I'm going with Buffalo. And Seattle, the Rams. Give me the Rams. And on Monday night, Denver and Minnesota. Who is booking these games? I'm sorry, that's Sunday night, not Monday night. Obviously, the Eagles are Monday night. Give me Denver in this game. Yep, Denver. So there you have my Week 11 picks, courtesy of. Let me put something up here. Courtesy of the segment. Where is it? I'm going to put it up here. David R. Cherry, Esquire, for workman's compensation, motor vehicle accident, personal injury, or criminal law. Dave Cherry at 610-565-0300. Tell Dave Talking Philly Sports and Matty B sent you, and he will take the best care he possibly can for you. And if you're looking for those hard-to-find tickets to sports, concerts, or theater events, look no further than Sherry's Tickets at www.sherrystickets.com. Family-owned and operated since 1946. Save an additional 10% when you enter the promo code EOP10, folks. Woo, that is going to wrap me up. I want to thank Bill Matz, all of our sponsors, and you for joining me tonight. And be on the lookout. Oh, yeah, one last thing. This is what we got for you this week here on the Edge of Philly Sports. Me leading you off as I do every week with some Talking Philly Sports with Matty B. Later on tonight, probably about half an hour ago, Party on Broad, and then the NFL Draft Show later on tonight, and then everything else we have to offer here on the network throughout the week. I hope to God you have a great start and a great Philadelphia sports week. And until we talk again, that is the news. And yeah, buddy, I am out of here.